A Minnesota Lynx show? Yes, a Minnesota Lynx show. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
Ogunbowale for the win. Good!
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Hi, everybody, and happy Tuesday to you. I'm Howard Megdal, host of Locked On Women's Basketball. I want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. Over 100,000 of you showed up last month yet again, and we are on pace to break that mark here in September. So you guys keep showing up for us the way we show up for you 6 days a week. Of course, it is not just me. The great Terry Horstman is here as well, and it is the entire team over at The Next, where we cover women's basketball 24/7, 365, over 100 articles every month right into your inbox. Just go to thenexthoops.com, subscribe, $9 a month, $72 for the whole year. It is the women's basketball coverage that we've always dreamed about, and now it is here. And Terry, of course, is here to join us. I booked him because we are, well, I watched game one of the Sun and Lynx. I saw that the Sun won by 30. I assume that I didn't watch, obviously, but assuming game two also went the Connecticut Sun's way. So I'm just going to load up the box score. We're get ready to discuss the offseason for the Lynx ahead. Since obviously they got swept, I'm just going to take a big swig of water and open that box score. Oh, you know what? I'm getting word in the pretend earpiece in my ear that the Lynx won. The Lynx won 82-75 on the road.
Yep.
The team they just lost to by 30. Terry, in segment one, we just talked about what happened. What happened?
What happened is I think any number of individuals made the mistake of assuming they knew anything about the 2023 Minnesota Lynx. I think I learned early, maybe about 10 games in, that really anything can happen with this team. It could be a blowout. Not very much not in their favor, as we saw in game one, and they can turn around and look like a completely different team immediately afterwards. And Napheesa Collier and Kayla McBride are the most lethal duo to ever exist, just like that. So it's consistent with kind of the vibes and the swings that we've seen from this team in 2023. So they've earned a pretty exciting trip back to Minneapolis, have made the Sun fly back to Minneapolis too for a decisive game 3, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
I mean, I'm so excited for Lynx fans, who keep showing up. There was this look. It's easier to fill the arena when you're winning championships every other year, but the fact that this team continues to do it, and you had a terrific piece earlier this year talking to Carly Knox about the business side of it and how they've continued those Lynx fans coming to Target Center. But you get this kind of reward purely from that perspective. Seems like a very big deal to me. And before we get into like what it means for the franchise and how they do it in game 3, in order to advance, to continue this season going, how significant do you think it is to this fan base to have this type of moment, to have this type of opportunity, an unexpected one? And it has to be said, an unexpected one from a team that on paper did not necessarily look like a playoff team, a team that started 0-6 this year. What do you think this means to just that fan base that is so intensely supportive?
Yeah, I think it means everything. I don't think that it was expected after the way last year went. And even in the previous couple of years where they did qualify for postseason play, I know those were all draining seasons on the team and also on the fans. So that the fans have been a massive part of this franchise for longer than anyone who has been on the roster has been here. So I think to see this sort of sustained success and to be able to have this moment, to have earned the right to make a 27 win team fly back to your house for decisive game 3 as deep into the first round of the playoffs that you can. It's very significant. I just think the longevity of the Lynx being in these types of moments has meant everything to the fans, and just the fact that it's back after a 1-year hiatus when I think people were prepared for this moment to come back much longer down the road.
I mean, it's amazing to me that, I mean, this was a stat via ESPN Stats and Info, that we've never had a game before where the Minnesota Lynx had 2 players score 25 plus in the same playoff game. And so
Right, and that seems crazy.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
there've been a couple of like halfway decent players, right? In
A
Minnesota
few.
history, if memory serves, like
Mhm.
Maya something, Sylvia something, like,
Yep.
I mean, just to have, after all that, and to have that type of success from that duo,
Mhm.
from Kayla McBride signed to an extension, and Napheesa Collier, an absolute steal, and was clear at the time, and is more so with each passing day as the number 6 pick in the draft when Minnesota got her.
Yeah.
It really says something about, I guess it kind of turns things on their head, right? This idea that, all right, the Lynx better get to the lottery to be able to get the building blocks of a future contending team. The building blocks are here, right? In Kayla McBride and Napheesa Collier.
Yeah. And they showed that on Sunday afternoon. In their best moments this year, they've showed it a few times. This wasn't the first time they both went off and really, snatched victory away from a pretty dominant team. So I think that did show that they have the building blocks, like you mentioned, to make this generation's run. And it'll be fascinating theater to see it play out.
Both signed through 2025 as well. I mean,
Yeah.
really significant to have them under contract for the foreseeable future. A very big deal as far as I'm concerned. But before we get into in segment 2 about what it all means and what Wednesday night is going to look like, we just got to talk about like how they did this. So again, I mean, I love this box score so much. I know that makes me a nerd, but like I love this box score so much that the leader in assists for this team was Dorka Juhas. And I remember you and I were texting about this during game 1, where we're like, all right, well, look, they don't have Lindsay Allen, they don't have Jessica Shepard. It's very hard to figure out how you make playmaking work. But Cheryl Reeve, a young up-and-coming coach who I think has a bright future in this league, apparently figured out with her staff how to make Dorka Juhas, a rookie center, essentially playmaking. I mean, it's like I'm almost describing her as a playmaking way station, because now that she's bringing up the ball and running the offense in that way, but she had 6 assists. Rachel Banham had 5 assists off the bench. Like, take me through how this offense was rerouted. It's just amazing to me.
Yeah, it kind of feels like it's almost playmaking by committee when you don't really have a point guard with the absence of Lindsay Allen. The point guard duties have fell primarily to Tiffany Mitchell or Rachel Banham, or I guess Dorka Juhas. But Dorka, if you've watched just the evolution of her game this year, she is a phenomenal passer, and that is a part of her game that I think already was pretty darn good when her first season started in May. And I think it's only elevated, and we've sort of seen these 6 assist plus games for her pop up in box scores, and just her court vision for a young post player is off the charts. And you can't exactly.
I do have to say she mastered that skill at UConn as well. Her assist percentage was 17.6% at UConn. She worked with another young up and coming talent in Chris Daly,
Right.
On Gino Oriema's staff. I got to look up. We'll check after the show to see what state Cheryl Reeve and Chris Daly from, and if it's in fact the same, magical state. But from that perspective, that seems very significant to me.
Yeah.
And then Rachel Banham, of course, not only the 5 assists, right, but that absolute dagger hanging in the air. I mean, during the week that the Minnesota Vikings have continued to make everybody sad in your state, how amazing to see the pride of Minnesota come through like that. I want to talk more about Rachel in a second, though. We are up against break number one, so I want to talk about that first. I want to talk to you guys at home about Jace Medical. Jace Medical is a really innovative new product, a sponsor of our show. The Jace case, it provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. You've all had this. I know I've had this experience too, for me, for my family, where, geez, you got to get medical help fast and not so easy to get an appointment. So, but all you have to do to get a Jace case, you fill out a simple online form. Some cases you jump on a quick call with one of our board certified physicians. You get ongoing care from the physicians at Jace Medical on any treatment related questions. Doctors created this. Doctors recommend this. So you're not caught unprepared. You get this opportunity to make sure you're all set. You can save over $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics, but additionally, $20 more by using the code LOCKED ON at checkout when you go to jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Make sure you're using the code LOCKED ON to save an additional $20. So speaking of lifesavers, what Rachel Banham has done here, right, is just, I mean, so necessary. And this is a player who was out on the free agent market for a long time. To me, I just think she's criminally underrated. And somebody who can shoot is a big deal off the bench, and that matters. Somebody who can come in and plug in time at point guard. But, I don't think it's overstating it. Where would they be without Rachel Banham?
I think they'd be in off-season mode already if they didn't have Rachel Banham, the pride of Lakeville, Minnesota, on the roster. Yeah, that was an amazing moment. I think anytime you see anyone that advances or extends the playoffs, really in any sport, but in the WNBA specifically, is you can't rely solely on your superstar players, and it's nice to see just players get their moments. And Rachel was huge in those stats, the shots that she made in the box score that you can't look away from because of how unbelievable it is. But her getting to hit that shot, of course the dagger belongs to Rachel Banham, and she seemed like she hung in the air forever. The angle, the trajectory, everything was so consistent with the way that game that I believe Monica McNutt referred to as the Hunger Games at one point played out on Sunday afternoon. So this team, it's hard to imagine where this team would be with really just about everyone who's been getting minutes and getting buckets in these games. So definitely, as you mentioned, the Vikings aren't doing their part to keep the North Star State in a good mood right now. So thankfully for Minnesotans, they do have Rachel Banham.
Thankfully for Minnesotans, they do have Rachel Banham. Yes, I couldn't say it better. And again, just to go back to McBride for a second, she played all 40 minutes. Now, I'm old enough to have covered her coming over from winning a championship in Turkey, flying halfway across the world, and playing in the opening game for the San Antonio Stars. So she is no stranger to pushing her body the extra mile. But players aren't supposed to get better with age. It was always a little crazy to me that Sylvia Fowles had better numbers in her 30s than in her 20s. Now we're seeing Kayla McBride having maybe the best year of her career here in year 10 in the WNBA. Take me through. I'm obviously from New Jersey, so I don't know this. Is there some sort of cocoon scenario going on in Minnesota? Is there something I need to know about? Rebecca Brunson figured out how to shoot the three when she was 35 years old and had some of the best years of her career. What's going on out there? Is one of the 10,000 lakes a fountain of youth?
It really could be. That's an interesting theory. I haven't thought about one of the lakes being the fountain of youth. I was
options.
I've been to a few of the beautiful wineries that are in Minnesota, and I don't think we're pushing Napa Valley or anywhere else for being the Tuscany of America for our winemaking. But yeah, a lot of players here have aged like a fine Bordeaux, and seeing players play really well as later later in their careers. I think Kayla McBride still has quite a few years left as being a star caliber player in this league. I think that just probably comes down to Cheryl and her approach and what is expected if you want to be a secure and long-standing player within the organization. I think it's finding ways to adapt and to keep adding to your skill set as your career unfolds.
Remarkable.
So yeah,
And again, a tribute to that coaching staff, where Brunson is now a member, along with the
yep,
great Katie Smith, who has recently been on the program, and who I will once again say, when there are off-season openings for head coaching jobs, Katie Smith's got to be on your list to interview. So
yeah.
I'm just putting it out there. It's important that every WNBA team knows that. But leaving that aside for a minute, I want to bring in a couple of more thoughts, ideas, and then we're going to end on the Target Center atmosphere and segment.
Great.
But number one is Diamond Miller has not had a Diamond Miller game yet in these playoffs. She's made 2 field goals in each of the first 2 games. And I say that as in Minnesota has managed to send this back to the Target Center for game 3 without yet getting a Diamond Miller game. That seems significant to me because Diamond is somebody who we know has that inner.
Yeah.
And how much is Diamond Miller an X factor as that kind of third scorer, where if you combine her with what Fee and K-Mac are doing, and you think of them as givens at this point, I certainly do, as a real difference maker coming up in this game 3.
Yeah, I think that must mean the Diamond Miller game is coming. She obviously had a bit of an up and down rookie year, and missed a decent amount of time with injury earlier in the season. But man, those highs were pretty high, and I think the Sun are just a difficult matchup. The Sun are a difficult matchup for anyone. Let's be clear. But I was on Power Plays with Lindsay Gibbs yesterday, and we were just talking about the Sun as it's grown woman basketball, and it's going to be hard for any rookie, especially a rookie like Diamond, who runs the floor so well and really gets up and down north and south. When Diamond has a head of steam towards the basket, it's maybe my favorite thing to watch on a basketball court. And the Sun are all just happy to stand in the tracks and try and knock the Diamond train off of it. And a lot of it, I also said in these first 2 games, it has been a lot of playoff fouls and that don't get called, and that's the playoffs, and that's fine. It seems like every single ticky-tack call has been reserved for Diamond Miller, where she's been standing, not even moving, straight up, and Alyssa Thomas scores and gets put on the line. That's just part of it, I guess. But I think the foul trouble has done its part in kind of taking her out of the rhythm here. So it would be great to see her have one of those explosive Diamond Miller games on Wednesday night. But if that happens, then the Lynx have a real shot to getting into the semifinals, which seems wild. One of the things that Cheryl said after the game on Sunday was from 0-6 to 40 minutes away from the semifinals. And I know there's one other team in history that started 0-6 and made the postseason. I don't believe anyone started 0-6 and advanced in the postseason and getting within one series of the finals. So we'll see what happens on Wednesday. But if we get a good Diamond game, there's a good chance of that happening for the Lynx.
I will say Cheryl Reeve, pure coincidence, was part of a coaching staff for a team that started 1-10.
That's right.
Won Charlotte Sting and ended up making it to the WNBA finals. She was coaching for the great Ann Donovan, who was missed. So that does happen. I will say, just relative to the Sun, relative to what we were just talking about, the Sun got everything you could ask for out of Alyssa Thomas in game 2. The 26 points and 8 boards, 6 assists, 10 for 18 from the field. So she was efficient. They got 6 threes and 24 points from DeWanna Bonner. It wasn't like the Sun played an uncharacteristically poor game 2 at home. They shot 5% from three. They're 36% from three on the season. If anything, what was uncharacteristic was in game one when they shot 16 for 30 from three. So in a lot of ways, typically when a favorite gets upset, you say, all right, geez, they weren't doing what they normally do. The Sun were doing what they normally do at home, and Minnesota still beat them without getting an A-level performance from Diamond Miller, who is from what state?
I can't.
Do you
Is it
remember
Jersey something?
some
Old Jersey, or is it Old Jersey or New Jersey?
Oh no, New Jersey. So
Okay, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one.
indeed it is. Well, we'll be back momentarily
Right.
to talk about the Target Center in Game 3. But first, I want to talk to you guys about FanDuel. And now FanDuel, of course, is telling you to snap into NFL action this year. America's #1 sports book is FanDuel. Terry, does Minnesota have an NFL team?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Well,
Much to the not to the benefit of my mental health or well-being, but yes, the Vikings is
the Vikings, right? I've heard of the Vikings.
They had a game near New Jersey this past week, and it did not go well.
Did not go well. I heard the cheers from over the Delaware River. So right now, new customers to FanDuel can get $200 in bonus bets when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. You can even bet on the Vikings and be okay. Or you can also bet on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. You go over to FanDuel.com/locked-on, and that helps you kick off the NFL season. FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON. It's true. You can even bet on the Vikings. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Yeah, even Eagles fans were like disappointed that they didn't beat the Vikings by more. It's been a scene here in the Philadelphia area.
Right.
So yeah, please.
When it comes to that, this Minnesota-based beat writer endorses putting Justin Jefferson into your FanDuel lineups. Maybe stay away from all other Vikings, though.
Maybe
for the time being.
At least until the offseason. So when we think about Target Center, Wednesday night, a place contrasting the Vikings, a place of happiness, Minnesota, right? First of all, quick turnaround. I'm curious, what do you put the over-under on for how many people are going to be in that building with, Carly and that sales team has, a couple of days to sell playoff tickets? What's that going to be like?
Yeah, I've seen a player, a former baseball player. I think he played. I know his exploits more as a businessman. Alexander Rodriguez, who is part of the ownership group with the Minnesota Lynx and Timberwolves, has said it's a sellout already, and I think that might refer to the lower bowl, and I believe the upper deck will be fully open, and so. Tickets are going like gangbusters. So I would put the over under. I'll say, I think it's 15,000 would be fantastic, and it wouldn't surprise me if they even blow that out of the water. So
I love what they've built there in Minnesota, and obviously I'm in some ways spoiled to have had the chance to write about it up close for. Books that I worked on that's coming out in spring of 2024 called Rare Gems. We'll have more information about that, of course, as we get closer to publication date. But it really is a remarkable thing. And so in a season that, again, you even go by things like net rating. And the Minnesota Lynx were 10th in net rating this year. I just wonder how much you think a win on Wednesday night pushes forward the long-term macro Minnesota Lynx project. How much a playoff win you think matters here?
That's a great question. I think it's definitely significant. I think the growth that this team has displayed this season is significant and undeniable with a win or a loss on Wednesday night. So I don't know that if a win against the Sun and a trip to the WNBA semifinals proves that this project is worth pursuing in its state, or proves that, not that this team would ever tank, but that not tanking was the route to take, as fans will probably discuss for the next forever. So I think
certain other point guard comes out in the 2024 draft from Minnesota.
there certainly is. I think it's like that type of achievement and commitment, I think, matters and has been proven this season, regardless of the results. But I do think, a win also just sort of favors the argument of let's run it back. I think a lot of people kind of scoffed when Napheesa Collier said the goal is always to win a championship before the season started, and that's what we're doing. And there's kind of a lot of but in the WNBA media community, and there's definitely a lot more of that when the team was 0-6. But that sort of goal and that language from the top and from anyone within the organization never changed. So I think going to the semifinals kind of, might put egg on the face of, some doubters or not, but I don't know if that truly matters. I think they'll analyze the development and the play of this team, fairly, with whether the result is a good one or a negative one on Wednesday night.
Scoff and Napheesa Collier at your peril.
Absolutely.
At your peril, as I've said on this program.
Not any of these media members present on this episode of Locked On scoffed. We are not scoffers over here.
We are not scoffers of either of those figures. That is for sure. Terry Horstman, delighted to talk to you about this. Of course, for those of you at home, thank you for listening. Terry will be giving you a live post-game Locked On Women's Basketball short tonight. Or rather tomorrow night from Target Center. Tonight we will have live post-game coverage from me, from Jackie Powell at Barclays Center, where Game 2 between the Mystics and the Liberty will take place. And Jackie Powell will join me tomorrow morning to talk about all things from that game as well. So we will have the nonstop, plus, of course, Terry covering live from Target Center tomorrow night. We are everywhere the playoffs are at thenexthoops.com and Locked On Women's Basketball, and we're so delighted to be with you. Thank you to all of our listeners. Until tomorrow, I'm Howard Megdal. Hold on to your hats.
Ogunbowale for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.